Grandma, I'm so hungry. He locked me in my room and Mom won't wake up. My 7-year-old grandson calling from a number I didn't recognize, voice shaking. Then I heard a car door slam. The line went dead. I hadn't seen him in 6 months. His mother stopped letting me visit. I drove through the dark, not knowing what I'd find. When I got there, the house was pitch black. Nobody answered the door. So I picked up a rock from the garden and I broke that window. What I found inside that house made my blood run cold. And what I had to do next would change our lives forever. My name is Judith Morrison. I'm 72 years old, and this is my story. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe to Never Too Old channel. We're creating a community of people who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. The phone rang at 8:30 on a Tuesday. I was rinsing my dinner plate, the kitchen window showing my reflection against the dark outside. I live alone in a 2-bedroom house on Riverside Drive in a town most people have never heard of. The phone sat on the counter, the screen lighting up with a number I didn't recognize. Something in my chest tightened before I even picked it up. Hello? Grandma? The voice was small, shaking. My hand gripped the counter. Liam? Grandma, I'm so hungry. He was whispering like someone might hear. Mom won't wake up, and he locked me in my room. Please come get me, please. A sound in the background, a car door slamming. I have to go. The line went dead. I stood there with the phone pressed to my ear, listening to silence. My hands had started to shake. I pulled the phone away, looked at the number, pressed call. It rang 4 times and went to a generic voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. Then I called Rachel. Straight to voicemail. Her voice chirpy and fake. Hey, this is Rachel. Leave a message. I hung up and called again and again, 5 times, each one going to that same bright recorded voice while my grandson was somewhere, locked in a room, hungry and scared. I grabbed my keys from the hook by the door, my coat, my purse. My phone kept ringing Rachel's number as I walked to the car, as I backed out of the driveway, as I turned onto the main road, heading east. 45 minutes through dark roads. I'd made this drive before, but not like this. Not with my hands shaking and my phone in the cup holder trying Rachel's number over and over. Each call went straight to that bright voicemail message. The headlights cut through the night. My mind kept going back. 4 years ago, my son Danny died on Route 60, 3 miles from his house. A truck ran a red light. The officer who came to my door said he didn't suffer. I don't know if that was true, but I thanked him anyway. Danny was 32. Liam was 3. Walter, my husband, held it together for the funeral. Shook hands, accepted casseroles, thanked people for coming. 3 weeks later, I found him in the garage, slumped over the workbench. Heart attack. The doctor said grief can do that. Put strain on the heart until something breaks. I buried my husband 5 weeks after I buried my son. Rachel and I clung to each other after that. She'd move into our house some weeks, couldn't stand being in hers without Danny. Liam would sleep in his father's old room, and I'd make breakfast for the 3 of us. We didn't talk much, just sat together. I thought we'd always have that. Then, 2 years ago, she met Derek at some bar in town. He seemed fine at first, polite enough when he came to pick her up. He had a job doing something with construction, said he made decent money. Rachel smiled more when she talked about him. I wanted her to be happy. She lost so much. The visits started spacing out. Every week became every other week, then once a month. Then she called and said they were moving. Derek had a better opportunity an hour away, and could I help them pack? I drove out and loaded boxes into a truck. Derek barely looked at me. Rachel was jumpy, talking fast about their new place and how Liam would love the backyard. Liam sat on the porch steps, quiet. He was 5 then. After they moved, I'd call and Rachel would say they were busy settling in. Derek was working long hours. I could come visit in a few weeks. A few weeks turned into 2 months. When I finally drove out to Pine Street unannounced, Rachel answered the door in sweatpants, her hair unwashed. The house smelled like stale beer. She said Liam was napping and I should have called first. I saw him for 20 minutes. He looked smaller than I remembered. The last time I saw Liam was 6 months ago. Rachel had finally agreed to bring him to my house for Sunday dinner. She showed up an hour late, without Derek, said he had to work. Liam was too thin. His shirt hung off his shoulders and he barely touched his food. When Rachel went to the bathroom, I pulled an old cell phone from my junk drawer, the one I'd kept charged in case of emergencies. I knelt down next to Liam in the hallway. "Listen to me, sweetheart. I'm going to put this in your backpack, okay? If you ever need me, if you're ever scared or you need help, you call this number." I showed him the contact labeled Grandma. "You can charge it behind your dresser. Just plug it in when you're alone. Nobody needs to know. Can you do that for me?" He nodded. His eyes were wide and something in them made my stomach hurt. "Do you need help now?" I whispered. He glanced toward the bathroom, shook his head. Rachel came back and said they had to go. I hugged Liam at the door and felt his ribs through his shirt. I called Rachel every week after that. Most times she didn't answer. When she did, she said everything was fine, I was worrying too much, Liam was in school and doing great. I asked when I could visit. She'd say, soon. Soon. Derek's been stressed and they needed family time. I stopped calling after a while. I didn't know what else to do. Until tonight. The GPS said I was 10 minutes away. My hands ached from gripping the steering wheel. I turned onto Pine Street and slowed, checking house numbers in the dark. Theirs was at the end, a small rental with peeling paint and a yard full of weeds. One window glowed dim yellow. The rest of the house was dark. I parked on the street and walked up the cracked driveway. The front door had a wreath on it, half the fake flowers missing. I pressed the doorbell, heard it chime inside. Nobody came. I pressed it again, knocked. "Rachel, it's Judith. Open the door." Nothing. I walked around to the side of the house, my shoes crunching on gravel. The kitchen window was head high, curtains open. I could see the sink piled with dishes, a trash bag overflowing on the floor. I went back to the front yard and picked up a decorative rock from the flower bed, smooth and heavy in my hand. Then I walked to the kitchen window and swung. The glass broke with a sound that seemed too loud. Shards fell inside and onto the grass. I used the rock to clear the bottom edge, then grabbed the window frame and pulled myself up. A piece of glass caught my palm, and I felt it slice, warm blood running down my wrist, but I didn't stop. I got my knee onto the sill and shoved myself through, landing hard on the linoleum floor inside. The smell hit me first. Alcohol and old garbage and something sour I couldn't place. I stood up, glass crunching under my shoes, and looked around. The living room was worse than the kitchen. Empty beer bottles covered the coffee table, an ashtray overflowing with cigarette butts, fast food wrappers on the floor, dirty plates stacked on the couch. Rachel was on that couch, lying on her side, one arm hanging off the edge. She wore stained sweatpants and a t-shirt with something spilled down the front. Her mouth was open. I could smell the alcohol from where I stood. "Rachel!" My voice came out harder than I meant. "Rachel, wake up!" She didn't move. I stepped closer and shook her shoulder. Her head lolled, but her eyes stayed closed. I put my fingers to her neck and felt a pulse. Slow, but there. Then I heard it. A small sound from upstairs. Crying. I moved fast, taking the stairs 2 at a time, blood from my hands smearing on the railing. The hallway was dark, 3 doors, 2 open and 1 closed. The crying came from behind the closed one. There was a lock on the outside, a sliding bolt, the kind you'd put on a shed.
My hands were shaking so hard I could barely grip it. The blood made it slippery. I wiped my palm on my coat and tried again, sliding the bolt back with a metal scrape that sounded too loud. I pushed the door open. The room was small and bare, a mattress on the floor with a thin blanket, a dresser with the drawers half open. The window had been painted shut, thick white paint sealing the frame closed, and there on the mattress was Liam. He looked up at me with eyes too big for his face. His cheeks were hollow, his hair hung greasy and too long. He wore pajamas that didn't fit anymore, the pants stopping above his ankles. In his hand, he clutched a baseball cap, navy blue with a faded logo. Danny's cap from high school. "Grandma," he whispered, "you came." I crossed the room and dropped to my knees beside him. He fell into my arms and I felt how light he was, how I could feel every bone in his back, how his whole body was shaking. "I've got you," I said into his hair. "I've got you now." He held on like he'd never let go. He was so thin. I could see his ribs through the pajama shirt, each one pressing against the fabric, his collarbones stuck out sharp. His face looked hollow, cheeks sunken in a way that made him look older than 7. Dark circles ringed his eyes like bruises. The baseball cap in his hand was the only thing that looked right. Navy blue, faded from years of washing, with a logo I'd seen on Danny 1,000 times. Liam held it against his chest with both hands. "I knew you wouldn't forget me," he said. I pulled him close and felt how light he was. When I lifted him, I could feel every bone in his back through his shirt, his spine a ridge under my hand. He wrapped his arms around my neck and held on so tight I could barely breathe. He was shaking, this trembling that wouldn't stop. After a minute, I made myself look around the room. The mattress on the floor had a thin blanket. No sheets, 1 flat pillow with a stain on the case. In the corner sat a small pile of clothes, a few t-shirts and pants that looked too small for him now. Next to that, empty granola bar wrappers scattered on the floor. The window had been painted shut, thick white paint sealing the frame closed. The dresser had 3 drawers, 2 hanging open and mostly empty. Behind it, just visible, a white phone charger cord plugged into the outlet, the one I'd told him to use. On the outside of the door, that bolt lock, shiny and new against the old wood. I looked down at Liam. "Tell me what's been happening." He pulled back enough to see my face. His eyes were red. "Derek locks me in here every night. When he gets home from work, he puts me in and locks the door." "Every night?" "Yeah, and he doesn't let me out until morning. Sometimes he brings crackers or a sandwich first. Sometimes he forgets." His voice got smaller. "When he forgets, my stomach hurts real bad." "What about your mom?" "She sleeps all the time. She doesn't wake up when I yell for her." He wiped his nose with the back of his hand. "Derek says she's tired and I need to leave her alone." "When did you stop going to school?" "I don't know, a long time." He looked down at the baseball cap. "Derek said I can't go anymore because I talk too much and the teachers ask questions." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "How you get food when he forgets to bring you any?" "Sometimes during the day, before Derek comes home, I can get out. Mom's sleeping so she doesn't hear me." He dropped his voice to almost nothing. "Yesterday, I went downstairs and climbed out the kitchen window. There's a lady next door, and she was in her yard. She saw me and asked if I was hungry." "She gave you food?" He nodded. "A sandwich. I ate it really fast. She wanted to know if I was okay, and I got scared, so I ran back inside before Derek came home." "What's her name?" "Mrs. Foster. She has a dog named Buddy." I stroked his hair back from his forehead.
It was greasy, needed washing. You were brave to call me tonight. I was really scared. I heard Derek's truck and I had to hide the phone super fast. He touched the baseball cap. I held this and thought about Dad. I thought maybe you'd come if I told you.
I'm here now, and I'm taking you with me. What if Derek says no? I stood up, keeping him on my hip. My back protested, but I didn't care. He doesn't get a say. We made it to the hallway when I heard the front door bang open downstairs. What the hell? A man's voice, slurred and angry. Who broke my damn window? Derek. I kept walking toward the stairs. Liam's arms tightened around my neck. Derek appeared at the bottom, swaying. He was a big man, over 6 feet, with a gut hanging over his belt. His face was red and his eyes unfocused. He looked up and saw us. Judith. He grabbed the railing. What are you doing in my house? I came down the stairs slowly, one hand on Liam's back, the other on the railing. Blood from my cut palm left smears on the white paint. I'm taking him with me. The hell you are? He started up toward us. You broke into my house. I'm calling the cops. Good. I stepped past him on the stairs, turning sideways to keep Liam away from him. I already am. You can't just take him. His breath smelled like whiskey. Get out. I reached the bottom and walked into the living room. Rachel was still on the couch, hadn't moved. Derek followed, stumbling over a beer bottle on the floor. I pulled my phone from my coat pocket and dialed 911. Put it on speaker. 911, what's your emergency? My name is Judith Morrison. I'm at 247 Pine Street. I need police and an ambulance. My grandson has been locked in a room and starved. His mother is unconscious from alcohol. Derek's face went white, then red. You can't... There's also an intoxicated man here threatening me. Ma'am, are you in immediate danger? Not if he stays back. Units are on the way. Stay on the line. Derek took a step back, then slumped into the recliner. This is my house, he muttered. My house. Liam buried his face in my neck. The sirens came fast. Red and blue lights flashed through the window, car doors slamming, heavy footsteps. 2 officers came through the broken kitchen window, hands near their belts. The first one through was a woman. Dark hair pulled back, sharp eyes scanning everything. I'm Officer Harper. Who called? I did. I nodded toward Derek in the chair. That's Derek Vaughn. The woman on the couch is my daughter-in-law, Rachel Morrison. This is my grandson, Liam. Officer Harper came closer and looked at Liam. Her expression stayed neutral, but something shifted in her eyes. Hi, Liam. I'm Linda. Liam turned his face away. The second officer, younger, with the nameplate reading Parker, moved toward Derek. Sir, stand up, please. Derek didn't move. Sir. Derek stood slowly, hands up. I didn't do anything. She broke in. Officer Harper kept her attention on me. Ma'am, what happened? I told her. The phone call, the drive, breaking the window, finding Liam locked in a room upstairs, the lock on the outside of his door. How light he was when I picked him up. While I talked, Officer Parker went upstairs. I heard his footsteps, the creak of the door, his radio crackling. Harper, you need to see this. Officer Harper touched my arm. Wait here. She went up, came back 2 minutes later with her jaw tight. Mr. Vaughn, turn around, hands behind your back. What? I didn't... You're under arrest for child endangerment. Paramedics arrived while Officer Parker was handcuffing Derek, 2 of them moving fast. The woman went to Rachel on the couch, checking her pulse and lifting her eyelids. The man came to me. I'm Todd. Can I check him out, buddy? Liam looked at me. I nodded. Todd knelt down and his face went carefully blank. He checked Liam's pulse at his wrist,
then his neck, looked in his eyes with a small light, asked gentle questions. When did you last eat something? Does your tummy hurt? Can you tell me your name? Liam answered in whispers, still holding on to me with one hand. Todd looked up at me. He needs to go to the hospital right away. I'm coming with him, of course. He glanced at his partner, who was already loading Rachel onto a stretcher. We'll transport them both.
Officer Harper came back while they were getting Rachel into the ambulance. I'm following you to the hospital. We'll need your statement, and I'm starting emergency protective custody paperwork. What does that mean? Liam stays with you tonight, probably longer. She looked at Liam, then back at me. You did the right thing, Mrs. Morrison. In the ambulance, Liam sat on my lap while Todd wrapped a blood pressure cuff around his thin arm. The lights inside were bright and sterile. Numbers blinked on a monitor. Grandma? I'm here. Are we going to your house after? Yes. Can I stay there for real? I looked down at him, at this boy who was nothing but bones and fear and a hope so fragile it hurt to see. You're safe now. I've got you, and I'm not letting go. He leaned his head against my chest and closed his eyes. The ambulance pulled away, siren starting, and I held my grandson and watched the house on Pine Street disappear behind us. The hospital lights were too bright. They took Liam into an examination room right away, a young doctor with tired eyes and steady hands. I stayed close while she worked, Liam's fingers gripping mine. She was gentle with him, asked him to stand on a scale, measured his height against a chart on the wall, looked in his ears and throat, listened to his chest with a stethoscope. Her face stayed calm, but I saw something change in her eyes when she pressed on his stomach and he winced. Does that hurt, sweetheart? Liam nodded. She wrote something on her clipboard. When did you last have a meal? A real meal, not just snacks. He looked at me, then back at her. I don't remember. This week? I don't think so. The doctor's pen stopped moving. She looked at me over Liam's head and her expression went hard. Mrs. Morrison, could you step outside with me for a moment? I want Grandma to stay, Liam said, his voice climbing. I'm not going anywhere. I squeezed his hand. Just right outside the door. You'll see me through the window. In the hallway, the doctor pulled her clipboard against her chest. He weighs 38 pounds. A healthy 7-year-old should be between 50 and 55. She flipped a page. He's malnourished, dehydrated, and I found bruises on his arms and back in various stages of healing. This didn't happen overnight.
I know. How long has this been going on? I don't know exactly. Months, maybe longer. My voice came out flat. I only found out tonight. She looked back through the window at Liam sitting on the exam table, swinging his legs. He'll need to stay overnight for IV fluids. We'll run more tests in the morning. She met my eyes. I'm required to file a report with Child Services. Good. Officer Harper appeared at the nurse's station an hour later while they were getting Liam settled in a room. She had papers for me to sign, statements to review. We went through everything in the hallway, her taking notes while I answered questions. When we finished, she closed her notebook. Social worker should be here soon, she said. I'll check in tomorrow. Then she was gone. A woman in a gray suit arrived 20 minutes later. She had short brown hair and carried a briefcase that looked like it weighed 20 pounds. Mrs. Morrison, I'm Karen Hughes, Child Protective Services. She shook my hand. Can we talk? We sat in plastic chairs while Liam slept in the room behind us, IV line running into his arm. Karen pulled out forms and a pen. She asked questions in a voice that had heard too many bad stories. Where did I find him? What condition was the house in? Had I noticed signs before tonight? Why didn't I report sooner? That last one landed like a punch. I tried, I said. I called. I asked to visit. They moved and cut me off. I didn't know how bad it was. Karen wrote something down. The doctor's report is clear. Combined with the police report and your statement, I'm granting emergency temporary custody. Liam goes home with you when he's discharged, and after there will be a hearing in 2 weeks to make it official temporary custody, then a full hearing in about 6 months for permanent placement. She looked up. You'll need a lawyer.
I'll get one. His mother has rights. She'll fight this. Letter. Karen's expression softened just slightly. He's lucky you came when you did. I didn't feel lucky. I felt like I'd failed him for 6 months. They released Liam at dawn. The sky was turning gray over the parking lot as I buckled him into the car seat I'd kept in my garage, the one from when he was little. He fell asleep before we reached the highway. The house on Riverside Drive looked the same as when I'd left it. I carried Liam inside and up the stairs to the guest room. Clean sheets, a blue quilt I'd washed the day before, a lamp on the nightstand. I tucked him in, and he didn't wake up. Downstairs, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table. My hands were shaking. I wrapped them around the mug and watched the sun come up through the window. The cut on my palm from the broken glass had been bandaged at the hospital. It throbbed now, but I barely noticed. I thought about Danny, about Walter, about all the ways I had lost people, and how close I'd come to losing Liam, too. The coffee went cold while I sat there. Liam appeared in the doorway 3 hours later, the quilt wrapped around his shoulders, his hair stuck up on one side. He looked around like he wasn't sure where he was. "Hey," I said, "you hungry?" "Where am I?" "My house, remember? You're staying here now." He blinked. "For real?" "For real. Come sit down. I'll make you breakfast." He climbed into a chair at the table and watched while I scrambled eggs and made toast, poured him a glass of milk. When I set the plate in front of him, he just stared at it. "Go ahead," I said. He picked up the fork and took a small bite, then another. He ate slowly, like he was testing whether the food would stay, whether I'd take the plate away. "Can I really stay here?" "Yes, you can." He took another bite, drank some milk. A minute passed. "Can I really stay?" I sat down across from him. "Yes, Liam, you're staying with me." He nodded and kept eating. Got halfway through the eggs. "Grandma?" "Yeah?" "Can I really stay?" "Yes," I said. "I promise." He finished his breakfast after that. I called a lawyer that afternoon while Liam napped upstairs. Patricia Dunn had an office downtown above a coffee shop. She was in her 50s with gray streaking through her dark hair and eyes that didn't miss anything. She listened while I told her everything, took notes on a yellow legal pad. When she finished, she sat back in her chair. "You'll need documentation, medical records from the hospital, police reports, financial records showing misuse of his survivor benefits. He gets survivor benefits from his father's Social Security. Should be going to whoever has custody." She made a note. "I'll need to subpoena Rachel's bank records. If she's been misusing that money, it'll help our case. It'll take about a week to get them." "How much are we talking about?" "Depends on what your son was earning, but probably over $1,000 a month." She looked up. "If they've been spending it on anything other than Liam's needs, we'll have proof of financial exploitation. Do what you need to do. The hearing is in 2 weeks. I'll have everything ready." A week later, Patricia called. "The bank records came through. You need to see these." I went back to her office. She had printouts spread across her desk, lines highlighted in yellow. "Liam receives $1,250 a month in survivor benefits from his father's Social Security." She pointed to the deposits, regular as clockwork. "Now look at where the money's going." I looked. Liquor stores, bars, a tattoo parlor, cash withdrawals at casinos, online sports betting, restaurant charges for $50, $60, $80, almost nothing at grocery stores. "They were using his money," I said. "Every cent of it." Patricia tapped one line. "This charge here,
That's a truck payment. They used a dead man's Social Security benefits to pay for Derek's truck. My hands curled into fists on the desk. "We'll use this in court," she said, "along with everything else."